Once upon a time, there were two very strange little creatures. They were the kind of animals you've probably never seen in the real world, and honestly, they didn't know much about themselves either. To this day, they had no idea where their true home was. They just wandered from one place to another, staying for a bit and then moving on. But there was one thing they were absolutely amazing at. They were experts at building homes. Now, Finney, who was just a young child, absolutely hated this constant moving. One day, he saw his dad packing their bags yet again, and he just lost his temper. He was so angry, wishing they could just stay in one place for once. But his dad looked at him seriously and explained that this wasn't just another move. The king of the jungle had summoned everyone because a massive, world-ending flood was coming. If they stayed behind, they wouldn't survive. As they spoke, a heavy rain began to fall, and Finney and his dad rushed to the great gathering in the jungle. There they met the lion, the king of the jungle. He told all the animals about the flood, but said he had a plan. He had built a massive boat, a giant ark, with the help of the other animals. The lion was going to be the captain, and he had two very strict rules. First, no animal was allowed to hunt another on the boat. Second, only animals from his specific jungle were allowed on board. The lion's team started checking everyone's records. When it was finally Finney and his dad's turn, the guards looked at the list and frowned. Their names weren't there. When the guards asked where their home was, Finney's dad had to admit the truth. They didn't really know because they were always roaming. Even though their lives were at stake, the lion was cold. He refused to let them board because they weren't local animals. He kicked them out right then and there. Finney was heartbroken. He was so scared they would be left behind to face the water. But his dad, being the builder he was, immediately started building a new little home and made a big promise. "Finney, I will get you on that boat." The security at the boat was incredibly tight. Finney watched as two other animals tried to sneak in, but they were caught and tossed out immediately. Finney was terrified, but his dad had a clever idea. They found some coconut shells and disguised themselves as wildcats. They waited for a pair of real wildcats to show up so they could blend in behind them. But the real wildcats noticed and started a fight, threatening to tell everyone who they really were. Just before the secret was out, a chimpanzee guard walked over. Thinking they were all just one big grumpy family of cats arguing, he told them to stop wasting time and get inside. They finally made it onto the boat. Once inside, Finney tried to be friendly with a young cat named Leah. But Leah wasn't interested in making friends. She was moody and just wanted to watch the flood arrive. While they were messing around, the two kids accidentally ended up outside the boat just as the flood hit. The water came rushing in with such force that the boat was swept away, leaving Finney and Leah behind in the middle of the rising ocean. Before they could drown, those two predatory birds who had been kicked off the boat earlier spotted them. They dived down and grabbed the kids, thinking they'd found a snack. Terrified, Finney's body did something strange. He released a cloud of foul-smelling blue gas. It was so stinky that the birds dropped them, and the kids fell onto a small, lonely island. Meanwhile, back on the boat, their parents realized with horror that their children were gone. On the island, Finney tried to be helpful and offered to build a shelter, but Leah was stubborn and wanted to be left alone. Finney built a beautiful, sturdy home, while Leah just tried to sleep under some leaves. When the rain poured down, her house was ruined, and she had to go to Finney for help. Inside, she noticed something amazing. The house was glowing. Finney realized right then that his kind naturally glows in the dark. Back on the giant boat, things were chaotic. The guards discovered that Finney's dad was in a disguise and that Leah's mom had helped him. Both parents were thrown into a jail cell. Leah's mom begged the lion to turn the boat around to save the kids, but the lion refused, saying it was far too dangerous for the other animals. The next morning on the island, Finney built a small boat to escape before the land sank, but a sudden, violent wind blew their raft away. Just as the predatory birds attacked again, a large gray creature appeared and saved them. This creature and its friend had also been rejected from the boat. They all decided to stick together to survive. On the big boat, the parents weren't giving up. Leah's mom and Finney's dad faked a huge fight to trick the guard. When he stepped inside to stop them, they locked him in the cell and ran. They confronted the lion, who got angry and tried to attack Finney's dad, but Leah's mom was faster. She knocked the lion unconscious with a stick. They took over the controls and steered the massive boat back toward the island. Back with the kids, the predatory birds had set a trap. They built a weak, shaky bridge over a deep ravine, hoping the animals would fall so they could eat them. But the plan backfired. The bridge collapsed right on top of the birds. Finney used his building skills to create a flying craft and managed to save all his friends from the deep ravine. As they kept moving, Leah got annoyed with how slow the big gray creature was and tried to go off on her own. She slipped and nearly fell off a cliff, but the slow creature she had been mean to saved her life using its long tongue. Leah felt so guilty for being so harsh. They eventually reached a beautiful crystal island to rest. Because Finney was there, the whole island glowed with a magical light. But by morning, the water was rising again. They were swept away and ended up trapped on a rock with those hungry birds waiting for them. Suddenly, the gray creature fell on top of the birds, taking them down into the water. Finney and Leah ended up on a piece of floating ice, which started to crack and break apart. Just as they were losing all hope, they saw it. The big boat was coming back. To get their parents' attention, Leah scared Finney on purpose so he would release that stinky blue gas. His dad saw the blue signal from the deck and rushed to save them. Finney managed to push Leah onto the boat, but the ice gave way and Finney plunged into the deep water. His dad didn't hesitate. He jumped in to save his son, even though he thought he couldn't swim. They stayed under the water for a long time. Leah and her mom jumped in to find them, and that's when they saw something incredible. Finney and his dad weren't drowning. They were swimming perfectly. They realized the truth. They were actually aquatic creatures. They never knew because they had never been in deep water before. Even the big gray creature was an animal that belonged in the sea. They had finally found their true home in the ocean. Everyone was so happy. Finney and his dad stayed in the water where they belonged, while Leah and her mom stayed on the boat. Even the lion finally understood why they weren't on his list. They didn't belong to the jungle, they belonged to the sea. The story ends with everyone safe, happy, and exactly where they were always meant to be.